Okay, so this is session 2, continuation of our prepping, right? We prepped and gessoed and stuff last week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I finished applying the wax. I used mud, so it's kind of a green color.
I love it. I love mud.
It's
I'm all about mud.
So, and I tried the different brush strokes. It's kind of hard to see, but I did. I have clear on her face and her hands, and then I tried different types of brush strokes, different brushes and different brush strokes. So.
Okay, awesome. So did you fuse it?
Yeah, it's fused.
Okay, so how did you feel about the fusing? How did that work out for you?
It's okay, but it's, you know, there's still texture. You know, it's not smooth, but yeah, it's the fusing was fine. Still a little bit of the gesso is coming through.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little bit of texture on. I put it on pretty thick, the gesso. So.
Okay, so what I like to think about at this stage when I have that first coat is I start to think about where I might want to put more or less. So I start to think about both addition and abstraction. I mean, both addition and subtraction right away. So I might just because of kind of that nature of like, I want it to be thinner in a certain area and thicker in other areas, I might just take a tool, and it doesn't have to be a razor blade. So when we talk about, you know, encaustic tools, we can talk about some of these as being like the lighter weight, meaning that they'll take off like less material in the beginning. So these are palette knives, which I absolutely love. And then these are the pottery tools.
Okay.
Right? Now this one actually is what they call an awl. It's actually for scratching or drawing. So it's if you want to make like a line, whereas this would be like a blending tool, blending tools. I tend to not use the razor blade that much in the beginning. I kind of save the razor blade for specific purposes, like going back on a stencil, right? Or if something's really bumpy, you know, trying to smooth it with the razor blade. But I have like specific things I use the razor blade for. If I'm just doing a light scrape, I definitely am going to use a palette knife or a pottery tool for just that first couple coats. You really just don't want to scratch the photo. And that's one of the reasons that I try not to use the razor blade unless I have at least 2 or 3 layers that are pretty thick. So that's a good rule to remember. Okay, so how can I help you make your next decision? So I hope you're like starting to feel this rhythm and almost like, okay, now I'm at this point. And so I can sort of think about like these next questions. One of the questions might be, am I going to use encaustic paint now to start blending areas of the photo together?
Okay. I think with this one, what I would like to do is, whoops, she's upside down.
No, that's okay.
I'd like to white out more this top area so I could.
I can't see the photo. Oh, it's okay. And
white out this top area more so that I could do more art type things here.
Well, do you want the background to be black or white?
So I'd like this part to be lighter, white.
Okay.
You know, and then this part down here would be more textured and black.
Okay.
So you tend to do half the palette, the canvas black, lighter and darker. So
okay, so wait, here, look at this for a second. So you basically have this. I mean, you don't have the same picture, but you basically have this.
Right.
You have a rectangle in a darkish rectangle inside a lightish rectangle. So what I would recommend is that you actually just take something dark, right, and kind of get rid of this white. So it could be like the darkest color of encaustic you have, and you could do it either with a stencil, or you could just do it with a hand, right? You could just start to sort of get rid of this.
Oh, okay. Well, the other thing is one thing I like, another look that I like that I played with was, this is all textured. So if I use a dark pigment stick here,
Mm-hmm.
I use that texture. So it's not totally dark, but it's textured with the pigment stick because it's going to fall if I rub it. Yeah.
You could do that. You could also darken it with a pigment stick or a pan pastel. I don't think the pan pastel is going to be opaque enough. I think it's going to be too translucent. But I don't know if you remember, but I did do that class demo where I showed you could build up. You could build up pan pastel. So you could like put a layer on.
Okay.
You could almost like put another layer over. You can put another, so you could make it darker by just sort of adding these translucent layers, right? I mean,
now I think I'll say the pan pastel for the last step. Yeah, and the light,
like powdered sugar, like sugar
flowers on or something like that. So,
okay.
And you were saying don't use straight black. I have let's see, graphite. Let's see,
I love graphite. Yeah, I love graphite.
So maybe I could do these textures here, but then if this is going to be light, let the light go up this way.
Okay, and how are you going to do the light? Are you going to do encaustic, or are you encaustic paint, or are you going to do?
I was thinking a pigment stick for the bottom and the top on this layer.
Okay.
Pigment stick.
So I generally don't use the pigment sticks in between my layers. If I'm going to use the pigment sticks, I use them as a top layer. So
as a top layer.
I do. But you can use them in between layers if you feel like you're going to essentially paint a layer and then add more wax on top and then
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
So like if I put the dark pigment stick here, then do some texture stenciling, texture with wax, and then fuse that and then wax over all that.
You're climbing a slippery slope, and I say that because the pigment sticks have oils in them. And so the reason that I don't like to layer with them is because I find them slippery. So I would rather just layer with wax on wax on wax and then be done with my wax. And it's in a weird way.
Okay.
Kind of, do you remember? And I love being able to talk to you about photography, but like, do you remember how we had like trays in the dark room?
Yeah.
It's just like you went one and you did a time period and then you transitioned and you did this and then you transitioned and then you evaluated and then you maybe printed again and then you did transition. So I think in a way there's a part of me that is still like that in this work. So I do the collage, I lay down the photo, I do the underpainting, the gesso, I do that first layer of wax, then I go to encaustic.
Okay, well let me do that then.
So whatever that is, and it doesn't have, there's no have to's. Like you technically also, you don't have to make everything exactly the color that you want it to be at this point. You're really just looking at the other things that I mentioned in our last class, which were what I call focusability. I call it like, focusability, like what is the viewer paying attention to photographically, and what is the viewer paying attention to texturally, like in the textures of the wax. So it's almost like you have two narratives going on. And if, another really good analogy might be like the orchestra. It's like the orchestra plays all at one time, but the strings, the high strings, the low strings, the really low strings, they're all playing a different part of the same song. But when you hear the song, it comes out as one thing. But you could compartmentalize the first chair violinist, the second chair violinist, the violas, the cellos, and the bass. right? So let's just talk about strings because I love strings. So let's just talk about them.
I used to play the violin and
I played the viola. Yeah, I played the viola. And my dad was a violinist. Yeah.
I know you mentioned that. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, I get that analogy also. It's great.
So it's so exciting for me. Like I get chills when conversations like this happen because I think about all the things that you know about music and body posture and flowing and rhythm. These things are so important to your art. So I think it's easier on you, and definitely I know it's easier on me to kind of go through these different compartments of the whole piece without trying to like turn
makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Turn too fast or also make something that's going to be technically challenging. If you go and put a bunch of oily pigment stick on the piece that you have it right now, I would say saranara, like go for it. No, finish it. Just finish it. Just do one coat of wax, put the pigment stick on and walk away.
That's probably why I've been having so much trouble with these pieces. So this is
because it's gonna fall up, it's gonna melt weird, it's gonna blur, it's gonna scrape weird, it's gonna blend weird, it's just gonna act weird.
Well, okay, so let me
and that's a terrible word. Like that's just not even a descriptive word. Just not
because I was having so many problems with these other pieces, and I think it's because I was starting with the pigment stick. So that's probably part of.
You know what? It's probably it sounds to me it's almost like in some way you just missed that dot to dot, like which dot.
Right.
Because really, like the medium for me is where I can add, like again, like layers, and I can do a little demo for you if you want.
Yeah, that would be good. But I'm also gonna, since I have my wax melting, I'll start mixing a grayish encaustic.
I would mix. Yeah, let me see what color paints you have, Pam.
Okay, hang on.
Oh my God, I'm so glad this came up. That's a lot of class.
I mean, this is. I remember I kept saying I feel like I'm missing something, and this is addressing that. Okay, I have different blacks. I don't know what this one. There's it probably doesn't matter, but Mars black, and there's another black.
So
yeah.
Do you have you can use black. You could lighten it. You can add.
Oh, I have lots of white. And then I do get some colors. I don't want to use this Mars. I think a dark gray with this would look really cool. I have this, which I love. I love these colors. Wait a second.
Hang on 1 second, Pam. It's Rory. He's in that. Hold on, it's my son. Hold on. Hey, Rory. Yeah, I'm in the studio. Lisa, I think I put her on her rope.
Oh, there it is. Then I need.
I'm gonna zoom.
Okay, so I have.
So wait, Pam, can I show you something?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a fairly large piece.
Yeah.
But
oh, I remember that.
Okay, so and I haven't had time to work on it. I mean, after we did our June and July, I was in August. I was kind of tired, but I also taught camp. So what happened here is this is kind of like still. I'm also noticed like my colors. I don't feel like my colors are. First of all, I don't feel like they're that important at this stage. And I also feel like I'm really just trying to figure out like composition, like what's going to be very waxy and what's going to be photographic, and sort of how the two are weaving together. So I haven't totally covered up like this underpainting. Right. So this is just wax medium. Like anywhere that you can see the photo, that's like pretty much just wax medium. right? And then over here, you can tell I started to go thicker, right? Really like 3 layers of encaustic. And again, like I think I did medium, I did blue, and then I did like a pink mud over the blue. And then I started to put the stencils on. So again, this is probably like 4 or 5 layers, wax, medium, encaustic. Now these encaustic layers too are fairly translucent. So they're like 50-50 encaustic paint to wax medium. And that allows me to what I call build slowly. So I'm not like, and I always think about it like weight of things in the world. It's not like I'm like, to me, fully opaque encaustic is like a brick wall. It's like you can't see.
Yeah, and sometimes I've had trouble making it, but what really helped is doing that test strip with some writing.
Right.
And I see it's a transparent glaze. So
right, because once you paint it on, you can't really make it translucent again. You could scrape it back or break it up. Like think about, you could punch holes in a brick wall, but you can't actually like thin it. You can't really thin it. So again, like I haven't put anything on here except for maybe a little bit of this blue that was opaque at all. And I also, in my mind, I have not really committed to colors. Like I tend to stay in these translucent sort of pastel-y accents of color that I'm thinking about. So like light green, light blue, light red, like, but the color will get darker probably when I get to the pigment sticks. I think for me personally, I like to paint and build texture and figure out the composition with what I call those translucent encaustic layers. That might include texture, but not necessarily opaque.
Okay. Well, let me
unless I'm sure of a form or a shape that I know is like as important as the photo, because if it's solid, it's gotta have meaning. It's gotta be like, this is
okay.
You know what I mean?
So why don't I mix up a gray and then put a lot of wax, about 50% wax in?
Yeah.
Get that going. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think you'll be happy, and you'll be happier. And again, it's not about, it's just, we're photographers adding this wax. And I just think that when you work in these translucent glazes, you have more options of control to go forwards or backwards in relationship.
The exercise you had us do during the translucent glazes, like with the shapes, I mean, I really like that exercise. So
well, right, but remember that these exercises just actually they're actually just painting techniques. So when you kind of put all of the exercises together, then you're just like flowing, you're just making the piece, right? You're just like, it's like doing a gymnastics routine. It's like you put all of the individual parts of the tricks together and you have like a performance, right?
Okay, let's see if this is, let me get a test strip. Let's see. Yeah, because this is the other thing for me, is learning how to mix colors. I mean, some of it's obvious, like gray, but
it's not obvious. It's never obvious. And the thing about the two, you have to remember with the encaustics, is it's very challenging because they're moving around on the palette. So what happens for me is that like I guess my building even kind of like slopes down. So I'm always like propping up one side of my hot plate so that my encaustics aren't all pouring downhill into a puddle, right? And mixing at the bottom of my plate, because like at the top, they started out in the ratios I wanted. And then by the time they slide to the bottom, they're just all mushed together.
Yeah, mine's pooling going down. This is.
So I sometimes prop mine up from the back so that it's actually pooling towards me instead of pooling
Actually, no, it's fine. I've got, it goes over here. So I've got, this is pretty transparent.
Let me say.
But I might want to have it darker.
I would say just more, I think a little bit, I would actually go a little bit lighter and a little bit more translucent.
Okay, all right.
Because again, remember, it's like when you add 1 + 1, it's gonna get more, right? So if you go very dark, then you're gonna be less likely to wanna like manipulate it or add more.
Well, build starting lighter. Okay.
Right, I always regret it if I start out too, it's kind of like, yeah, I always regret it if I start out too strong or heavy. It's harder to take something back
Okay.
than to add more.
Okay, where's my little test strip here?
So like, I don't know if you remember all the little photographic tools, right? But it's like always better to underexpose than overexpose, right?
For prints, yeah, let's see. Yeah. I mean, for slides underexposed. That lower?
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
That's okay.
You like
Okay.
the color?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to do the bottom part, or actually 3/4 with this.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the 3/4, like the H. And again, like the brush stroke, so think about which brush you're using.
I like the texture. I'm using a regular paintbrush.
Okay, so you like the short little, yeah, you like the bristle, that's the bristle brush.
Part, not on a dress. This is just the background. So
yeah, so that's a hot, like that's not a hake. That's like a wood staining brush.
Yeah. So and I'm doing pretty short brush strokes, so we get the texture of it.
Okay.
Somehow it's making little bubbles. That's interesting.
It should not be making little bubbles.
I don't know if it's the texture underneath. Maybe it wasn't fused enough.
You could take a little pin or like a pin or a push pin and pop
Oh,
them.
it's not a bubble. I'm sorry. It's little gaps, little holes.
Oh, gaps? Yeah, that's because you're using a bristle brush.
No, okay.
That's what we call that's like the burlap, right? That it looks like it has little holes in it.
Well, I'll show you. Wait, I'll show you. So if I'm going here, do you see the can you see
I
the,
love that. I love that.
So it's a texture thing.
Right,
So,
and so then you can take that texture and you can hit it with the heat gun, which will like pull it, like heat it up and pull it together and make it flat. Or you could hit it with you could go over it with a razor blade and make it less bumpy.
blend it in more.
Yeah, you could fill in the holes by hand by kind of like manipulating.
Yes, I do like the holes. I mean,
I like the holes.
Okay, so I don't want to not fuse it so much that we lose the holes. Okay.
No, I know. That's why like sometimes fusing, you know, you're like, how much do I fuse and how long? But listen, if you're really in love with the texture, I mean, I'd rather that you kept your texture than followed in than over, you know, fuse less.
Or is just let it dry. Don't fuse it right away. Just let it dry with the texture. And
you can let it settle. Yeah, you can let it settle and firm, and then just don't overfuse it. I mean, you can fuse it lightly. You don't have to overfuse it.
This side's a little harder. I don't know why. It's just, what did I do? So here's a question. No. So this area here, as I'm coming over to her dress, I mean, that's kind of stark. Is there a way to blend that in? Or
So I go over, when I'm going around a shape and I get close to it, I actually go over into the next shape. Okay. Yeah, and then I would just like either let the wax texture stay there and go fit, you know, correct it with white pigment stick, or I would just like, you don't want it to be cookie cutter, like exactly. like a, you know, like a cutout. You don't want it to be a fine line. You want it to kind of blend and move, right? So it sort of has this like ethereal softness.
So maybe should I make it more lucent so
As
it,
you get closer to her, you can make it more translucent, but I would just go ahead and go over the outside line of her dress so that the outside is blending with, you know, that area.
I have to make a little bit more.
Yeah, it's hard to tell how much you need. I mean, I would always say, you know, making more. You don't want to waste, you know, paint. So if you're always just making a little bit more, that's fine. And then also the color might not be exactly the same, but that's also fine.
Actually, yeah, I could have let it go a little lighter anyway because it'll be in that dress area. All right. Okay, so go into the dress area. No, not translucent.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like brush gently, like all over the outside edge of the dress.
Okay. Somehow I think I overdid it in one area. So this part I want to have the top light. So I'm not going to do it up there.
No, don't do it up there. But you could make you could either do more wax medium or you could do white encaustic paint up there. You want to sort of suggest the idea.
That is what. So here, this part, all right.
Oh, that looks better. Yeah, I love it.
So this looks, I probably had too much wax on here.
Uh-huh.
Into here. So actually, I should probably go up over here. So
I would go over her arm a little bit. Yep. And I would keep going. Yep. And
I do this. And what about her hair?
I would go over her hair a tad. And then just, you can scrape it off a little bit. I mean, yep. Are you happy with the texture? I think it looks nice.
It's okay. I thought that part down at the bottom was a little too thick.
Well, right, but then you can think about how you want to reduce it, right? So when you're adding wax, that's like a whole style. You know, there's things that you can do with that. There's ways that you can do it. But then guess what? Reducing the wax, taking the wax away, there's also a bunch of things you can do for that too.
Okay.
Right? Like how you take it away, what tool you use, whether you draw little holes in it or poke holes in it, or you blend it with a razor blade.
Well, it's it's a little scary to be going over her dress, but I like that texture because it's kind of feathered.
Well, right, and I don't like anything. Okay, so that gray, right, that looks nice. So the gray, where else can you put that gray? So you have all.
Let's see.
In the other shadows of her
more here. I should do some more up here.
Yep, and Pam, I would put some into her skirt.
Oh, really? Just randomly or
yeah,
just...
where it's dark and shaded, where there's shading in the gray, you can put a little bit of gray on her dress.
Okay. This is really good to take a specific thing. I mean, it's really good to do it this way.
So, and what I think about is I think about whatever paint I made I think about like getting it all over the camp, like using it all up, like just kind of getting it on there. And then
I don't worry about where the white is going to be because I can go over it.
I don't worry about where the white can be, right? Because I'm thinking about texture and blending right now. I'm not thinking about final color, and I'm not thinking about values of light, really. I'm thinking more about creating a composition and making the wax and the photo kind of unify in a positive way that I am happy with. And then I can think about the other additional things that I can do to fine tune it, right? So the wax, to me, I always refer to it as what I call like a gross motor skill. It's not like a fine motor skill. It's not specific. It's more like general and textural and kind of like bold, right?
All right, this is a little scary, but here I go.
Okay.
All right.
I think you're gonna be fine.
That's, I have to find, I have to say, there's something about this whole process, you know, over the last couple of weeks. It's like, it's making me look at my fears like, oh, I can't touch that. And you keep saying, no, it's okay, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, but why? Where are those messages? Where are those messages coming from? Who's telling you that?
Well, it's more like, oh, I put so much time into it, I don't want to mess it up. I'm afraid I'm going to mess the whole thing up.
Yeah, but you have the file. I mean, you have the photo. If the photo is yours, nobody can take that photo away from you. This is not a photo anymore. This is it's in its catalyst. It's in its cocoon. It's cocooning.
It's cocooning. Okay.
It's transforming.
I know.
Metamorphosing.
Yeah, but it's just interesting to see the fear that comes up. It's like,
that is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that is interesting. So you can tell yourself it's going to, you know, be reassuring. You can tell yourself.
Yeah, and as I do it, and then you show us ways, you know, we can get down, you know, scrape away, or we're going to change color. You know, it's just interesting. I don't have to have that fear, but it's there.
That's okay. You know what? I think we're all somewhat fearful of the unknown, and this is sort of like what we're all going through with COVID. We don't know. I think everybody does better when they know it's going to be over. They know it's they know.
But it's because this is such a totally new experience for me. It's like, how do I fix this? You know, like I know how to fix some things photographically, and so I don't worry about it. But but this one, okay.
So now what I would do is, did you add white to the top?
No, well, no, I just put some of the gray in. So now I'll put the white in.
I would put, okay, so let's do one more wax thing, then let's fuse it, and then let's do a little bit of reduction.
Reduction, okay.
Yeah, so let's put, so make a nice like translucent, I wouldn't make a bright white. I would make a very translucent off-white or white. I wouldn't put gray in it though. I would stay away from, I might put a little bit, are you interested in any other tints or colors in your piece?
Oh, I was going to show you.
Like brown or light brown.
This, I don't know. It's hard to see.
So if you have bright white, you can put a tiny little bit of that brown in there, and then you can add a bunch of wax medium.
It's actually not brown. It's a maroon. It's just gorgeous. I just love it.
Well, just use it. If you love it, use it. Use it because you love it.
Okay. Okay, here, let me just clean this so I can put this here. So it's, goodbye. I'm gonna have to start. Okay, I can use some of that. That's okay. So white with just a tiny bit of that.
I would put a tiny little drop of that maroon that you love in there just because you love it. And then, yep, and then go ahead.
And then I have a little bit of light gray. I'm just gonna not waste it. So
yeah, you can always, and if you had a little bit of light gray in your brush, there's probably enough in your brush to actually mix into your.
Yeah, it's very light. Now, I don't really see the I don't see the yeah. Just a little bit. Okay, it's kind of, it makes it a little pinky. And it should, you're saying it should be opaque or more translucent?
It needs to be translucent. You don't want to put anything hard on there.
This, the magenta is very subtle.
Good, subtle, beautiful.
This maybe just a little bit more. So makes it kind of pinky. It's really more pink. So here.
Oh, I love that color. You might want to make it a little bit whiter though. If it's representing, so wait, let me ask you this. What is it? what is this representing to you? Like, is it,
Oh, white. I want to have the white as a palette to put flowers or, you know, put things on top of it. Maybe color or one color flower. And then the bottom, the darker part, I'd like to have that more texture business.
okay, I think I would just still, I think if it's translucent, you can always make it whiter with pigment sticks. So remember that this isn't your end all color. So if you like the color, you're happy with it, go for it. If you feel like it needs to be a little bit lighter, you could add more white.
I am. I'm adding a lot more white, so it's going to be really translucent. So this is going to be for the top. Okay. Now, I was just thinking maybe I should have cut a shape. I have some shapes.
Well, right, I see a triangle. I see like a triangle from like the center of her body, like going up, right? Like up, like a, so that could be interesting.
Okay. Should I, let's see. I'd have to get a, I think even if I did this, this is going to protect her. Go like this right now. Because I don't have the scissors. I'm just doing the top, I'm not doing the bottom. So if I protect that one.
So remember some of the things that we talked about in the class. You could use masking tape, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't want to cut a shape. And honestly, like you wouldn't even need to cut a shape. You could just use paper.
I just put some paper down. And
yeah, you could use the edge of the side of a piece of paper.
That's what I'm doing, just for time.
Well, yeah, don't feel rushed. I mean, if today ends, you can, you know, let's.
I can finish it. Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So that's a little pinky. Okay. And actually, I don't mind if that goes a little bit closer to her. This. Seems like it's dry. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay, it's really subtle.
Nice. Subtle is always good. Pam, don't you feel more comfortable that subtle is good? I mean, I love it. I love it. I love the brush strokes you chose. Now, I personally would think about going very dark or more opaque or darker something, either brown or dark blue at the bottom.
Right.
At the bottom. But let's just,
I agree with you. I want that really dramatic darker bottom and lighter top. I really like that idea.
So I think we should fuse this I think you should just fuse it, right? Okay. And then we can start, then you could maybe take a razor blade to it or a palette knife and just kind of go over it and see if there's anywhere that's speaking to you that wants to be like smoother or somewhere that wants to be more textured. And you can just kind of like tweak those areas. If you feel like you want to do any mark making or drawing in it, this is a good opportunity. And then we can talk about I would add some more wax.
Well, wait, so wax now, I mean, fuse now, then the wax.
No, fuse and then scrape.
And then scrape, okay.
Fuse and then scrape. So I spend a little bit of time with each layer.
Okay.
Fusing and scraping each layer before I decide to add anything else.
And then afterwards, the idea would be to have a darker bottom. Okay.
And then the idea is then the next wax thing that we're going to add is something dark at the bottom.
Okay.
And don't feel like you have to overfuse it. If there's textures and areas that you like, you know, go softly on, you know, like tread lightly.
I'm looking for that little shine that comes up.
Yep, that's all you need to fuse. Don't overfuse it. Take it nice and slow. Gentle fusing. You don't have to liquefy anything. You don't have to move the wax in any way. You don't have to disrupt it unless you want to disrupt it.
Okay.
Right?
I'm seeing the shine. Mm-hmm. Okay. Woo!
What do you think?
Well, you know, you were talking about showing water. It looks like she's under like some kind of a splash pool or something because of all the holes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's funny.
So I would scrape away. I would scrape away her hair a little bit.
Right. Okay.
Yep. And not like, I wouldn't scrape her hair. Like I would just scrape gently away from her head. Like just
This way.
not try to just gently. Yeah. Just make it like break up that, just gently in there. So it feels like hair, not like cookie cutter. Like think, right. And you could also, along the bottom here of the dress, you could open up, like just lessen. Yeah. Scrape. Yeah, exactly.
Gently bring that back. Okay.
Yeah, but and scrape, you know, you could scrape this way, the way the dress is flowing, like this way. Yep.
Okay.
And the same with the hair. You want to scrape like down.
This way.
Yep, exactly. And not literal. You're not trying to like create a box or a bowl or a circle. You're just gently scraping.
Okay.
And everything else looks good.
Okay, so that's going to take a while. So I probably should do that.
Well, if you don't want to do that while we're on Zoom, we have about 10 more minutes because I have to go.
Yeah.
I have to leave at 3 today, but we could do the dark color if you want to do the dark color.
Okay, so just, yeah, because the scrape.
You can write yourself a little note that you're going to be scraping back around her dress area.
And I'll look at I'll look at this tutorial. I take notes and I take screenshots.
Well, I think it was really, really important what we talked about not using, I mean, there's so many problems with using the pigment sticks in between the layers, because basically it's like hitting a marshland. Like you'll want to be scraping back with grit and substance, but then you'll hit that layer of
I've had
pigment sticks.
Trouble with that.
Yeah, and it'll just slide it will just come right off.
So,
now,
okay, so I'm going to do the dark layer. Should I just do it the straight black with a little bit of white, or should I be putting in a little bit of the magenta?
Well, that's an interesting color. So what I like to do is if I used that you use that red in the top, you could mix that red with the black, would be pretty, or that maroony color, you could mix that with the black.
Yeah, I think that's.
And then you could add a little bit of wax medium or mud. You could add mud because black is such a dominant color.
So, yeah.
This is a perfect opportunity to mix with mud because black is going to dominate it.
Well, so the mud is greenish. So what's going to happen if this maroon won't be as
That's okay. It'll be pretty. It'll be pretty. I mean, I think I mix everything with either green or green or purple. All my mud is either green or purple or light brown.
I think I didn't melt the mud. So
that's okay. Take your time.
I can get it. I'll have to get it off like this.
And again, like, do you want to add at the bottom? Do you want to add a stencil shape, or do you want to add an abstract shape?
Later, I do want to do a stencil.
Okay, so far you haven't done any forms, right? You haven't really used any shapes or forms. You've just been going very atmospheric, which is just brush strokes swirling around, right?
Right, exactly.
So at some point, you might want to think about adding something more literal that's open to interpretation, or a shape that's important to you or expresses something that you want to say, or is describing the environment that this person, you know, this painting, you know, narrates. Like today was writing a little slideshow about what art is and why people do art. And, you know, one of the things that always comes up is that it tells a story, right? Especially when you put a person in it, right? So the person becomes the he, she, it of the story, and then everything else that you add in the composition sort of becomes those narrative elements to what is happening to the subject matter, right?
Yeah, so for her, what I see are, you know, some kind of flowery things up on the top, but then either watery things or kind of seaweed kind of things that, you know, the texture on the bottom.
Right. So maybe so if you're adding flowery things that are maybe coming around the outside edge or something, that means that you're like creating a frame. So the viewer is maybe standing somewhere in nature and seeing a vision of this woman in the floating water.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you could be metaphorically telling the story that this woman is in some type of a cave, right? So there could be like stones around her and she's in an opening in a cave. I mean, these are all, she could be in a lake, right? And so all of these different sort of environments have different descriptive characteristics that you can choose, right?
So when I'm picking my textures, I have to think of what's the narrative that I'm trying to
Well,
show.
at some point, right, you kind of do, because you have to pick something that's representational. That's just how stencils work. Like they're not, you know, unless you actually make one that's an abstract version of a botanic, you know what I'm saying? But that's not, I don't think that's what you're thinking. So when you add something literal, you have to sort of consider what it is you're adding. But then you can also consider, Pam, which is nice, is that you can like put it on there and then you can soften it. So, you know, in that way you can kind of put it on there and then you can either cover it back up and make it come through like more dreamy and less specific, right? So these are the options that wax gives us.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's opened up a whole new world. So is this dark enough, do you think?
Absolutely dark enough. Yeah, but I think it might be a little bit too opaque.
Still opaque. Okay.
Yeah, because black is so strong. I mean, just think of it as like the, you know, the strong, like the strongest one next to like red.
Actually, I think I should put wax in instead of, because that's already melted. So.
You know what I do sometimes with black, Pam, is I actually just take a little bit of wax medium and then instead of adding it to the black, I just add the black to the wax medium so that the wax medium is like more content than the black. Because it might take a while, to break down.
Let's see if this is more translucent. It's more translucent.
That's great. Do you like it? I like it.
It's okay.
I like it. Do you like it?
Yeah.
And I like your little sample sheets. You should keep those for each one of your paintings. That's kind of fun. It's kind of like designers, you know, they take swatches and they put like, you know, color panels next to each other and then they move them around. And
I wanted to mention that you would talk, I really don't know much about mixing colors, but have you ever tried Adobe Capture?
No, what's that?
It's really cool thing. I meant to tell you this after one of the other classes.
Yeah, tell me.
It's on your, it's a free app on your iPhone. And it's like when you take a picture, it kind of bounces around with different colors and it shows you what the color swatches are.
Oh, wait, you put a painting in there?
No, you know, let's say you're going to take a picture, but you take it through Adobe Capture and it breaks down the colors for you. So you see what your color palette is. So you could take a picture of a, you know, like an encaustic to, you know, see how the how the colors are working together. But it could just be a picture out in nature, and all of a sudden, all the colors sort of bounce around and then they settle, and then you have your color swatch.
Right. Oh,
anyway,
it produces the color swatches for you.
Yes.
It analyzes the painting and produces. That's amazing. I want to do that. Can we do that?
Yeah. Just check out Adobe Capture.
Pam, I love it. That is incredible.
I forgot to mention it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I thought you'd like it. See, you already know, you're already good at mixing colors, but you know, it's still a fun technique, I think. Okay, let's see how we're. And I probably have to come in. I'm going to be taking her hair. I'm going to be blending that.
I love. Wait, how much did you do? How much black? Did you just add the black?
Yeah, this is all this was the black. With a little bit of, it has a little bit of the magenta in it. I don't know if you can see it. I see it here. Okay,
so I think the next thing is horizontal, not vertical, horizontal razor blade scraping to get like a random pull.
Okay.
Like not controlled, but just random, like long strokes, like a little razor blade. Because what?
Don't go with the texture, just do it horizontal. Okay.
Horizontal. So this is what's going to happen, right? Is that you have a layer of wax, a layer of wax, and a layer of wax, right? So as you're scraping, the layer underneath where it was raised, that is what's the black is gonna come off, right? And where it's low, the black is gonna stay. So hopefully if you just go very lightly with the razor blade over that surface, it's gonna make, it's like auto texture. It's gonna make, it's kind of like seeing like a typographic map of like a canyon, right? You're gonna see where the layers kind of like filled each other and where they went over each other, where they went into each other. So you're gonna start to kind of reveal that. Now, if you go very heavy, you're gonna get rid of all of that natural up down, right? So you have to kind of like, I say, take it easy. I mean, you could take it really easy and use a lighter tool, but I think that you're not gonna see enough change. Like,
so
you'll
just
be like,
careful with the pressure.
The razor blade could be nice.
Okay.
Yep. And then we can decide, let me look at it one more time. Then we can decide if you want to add more light in that bottom area, right? And also you made it such like a semicircle. So we have to decide if we really love that shape. But one of my thoughts too, Pam, is that the dress comes, that you take like white, and that the dress comes back over the blackness. Because what happens with liquid, right, is that some of the body goes under, but then some of the fabric might lay on top of. So you're really starting to think in the painting about what the realities are of three dimensions, right? Of over and under. And you're doing it both like almost serendipitously by scraping, but you're also doing it intentionally by analyzing it and choosing, right? Okay. So, okay, that was a lot. That was good.
Well, that gives me a lot to work on. So I'm going to be, bringing back some of this around her.
You're going like kind of on a little archaeological dig of the kind of the memory of the three layers you just did, to kind of like, and to kind of blend that the neutral wax, the gray wax, and the dark wax, to kind of start to get them to blend and talk to each other and make some nice textures. And you don't want to go too fast, too hard. You don't want it to be hot, and you want to be relaxed in your wrist and just, right?
You have to go.
Actually, no, I'm just going to tell her I'm going to call her back because I want to just show you one thing. I want to demonstrate it. Hold on one second. Hey, can I call you back in 1 minute? As soon as I can. Okay. Okay. You asked me for a minute, and they're like, yeah, you got 1 minute. I'm like, oh, okay.
All right. Do it.
So like, this is intimidating too, because like, this is a tiny little razor blade, right?
Right.
And this
Right.
is such a big piece. But, you know, when I'm kind of at my best, meaning that I'm not like you know, I could just take that time to sort of just really
Yeah.
slowly, and you know, like if you did a little video, like you'd really start to see. So what happens is that like this is starting to shrink, right?
Uh-huh.
This is starting to shrink, but they're also like the top layer is getting a little bit more translucent and the undercolor is coming through. So right. And also like where it's raised up higher, like the detail in it is kind of smoothing out, right? And the underneath is coming through. Also, you know, you're forcing a blend, right? So you're sort of forcing these two layers to blend, you know? So like I know there's blue under here. So the more I take the pink away, the more the blue comes through, right? So the more you take the black away, right?
The gray is become,
So one of the bad things about using the razor blade is that sometimes you get those little gummies that stick back in there. So remember to clean your blade, right?
You know what I do? I put it right by the edge of, you know, where there's a groove. I put the razor blade right there on the hot plate. So it's just on that part and it just melts it.
Yep, you can do that, but then you have to pick up the hot blade. Or you can just, what I do is I sometimes just stop and I see, because I just boo-booed, right? I just got all that on there and I don't like that. So now I have to go double, which hurts my fingers, and take that off. But if I'd stopped and cleaned the razor blade, then even if you just wipe it on a piece of paper, it'll come off. But too, like all of these marks, like the direction that you scrape is important too, because you might end up making some little lines. You know, that's why I was saying horizontal or circular around the figure would be nice.
Okay, so just so I'm really clear, I do the scraping before I put another layer of wax on. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you're good with wax for right now. I wouldn't add any more wax till we're together again. I mean, do you have another piece you can work on?
Well, I wanted to work on the tree spirit. I could start doing the understory of the girl who's upside down. I mean, I could start doing the underpainting, not underpainting, but the burning and the dodging on that.
And I'm thinking that the next time I meet with you, I would like to have a printed out version of your woman in the water, and I'd like to paint with you, or I'd like to have a time to paint that. Next week, the rest of this next week is
yeah, I wanted to
you're going away. You're going away.
I'm going away, and actually it's longer than I thought because we may be moving to Portland, so we're going to go drive out there to look at this pot. So it may be more like the middle of October. So it's going to be a while.
Okay,
so that'll be time for you to settle down. And
that's fine. That's fine. Why don't we just secure why don't we secure a date before you go away so that we know we're meeting again, and then that sounds good. And you're probably going to you'll work on that other piece and you'll scrape, and then you'll just put it on pause while you're away.
Yeah, it's not great. I like to have the momentum, but I think this will work for both of our schedules. So, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we got to see each other today. Have a safe trip, and we'll catch up when you get back.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye, Pam. All right, great class. Thanks.